So let's get started. Welcome everyone. My name is John Sherrington. I'm the Executive Director of Sales and Marketing at Renewable Energy Group. And myself and my colleagues, which I'll introduce here in a moment, are really excited to bring you this webinar today to talk about how fleets in both the public and private sector are utilizing B100 blends of biodiesel to meet their sustainability goals. We've got over 150 folks registered from this conference, literally from around the world. So good afternoon to most of North America. We have some Europeans on the call. Good evening to them. So I'm going to kick off the webinar with just a short introduction to Renewable Energy Group and in general, some of the benefits of biodiesel. I'm going to turn it over to the CEO of Optimus Technologies, Colin Heiler, and he'll talk about the technology his corporation, in conjunction with REG, is implementing to allow existing diesel engines to operate on neat biodiesel. Then I'm really excited. We've got a couple of fleet managers from leading fleets around the country. First, we'll have Ryan Frazier from the Department of Public Works in Washington, D.C. And then we will have Rich Iverson from the city of Ames in Ames, Iowa. They're going to walk through some case studies in real life, how they're deploying the B100 technology. And then last but not least is going to be Jill Hamilton with both the National Biodiesel Foundation as well as Sustainable Energy Strategies, Inc. There is grant funding both at the federal and state level to support a number of the initiatives that we're going to be going over today, from a vehicle as well as tank and dispenser infrastructure availability, which I think may be some great opportunities for the fleets. And then we'll open it up for a Q&A at the end. And to submit questions, we would ask that you utilize the chat function. So Scott, I'm looking for a thumbs up from you technically that we're ready to go. Any issues at your end? Okay, perfect. Let me jump right into it. So REG is the nation's leading biomass-based diesel producer and marketer. We have 13 biorefineries operating throughout the world. They're represented by the green rectangles on the US and the European map that's in front of you right now. 11 of those biorefineries are located in the United States, a majority of them in the middle third of the country. Our largest biodiesel plant is in Grays Harbor, Washington, and in Geismar, Louisiana, on the Gulf, just an hour outside of New Orleans. We do have one 90 million renewable diesel plant. There are a few Europeans on the webinar as well. We do have around 60 million gallons of biodiesel production capacity at our two European biodiesel plants in Germany as well. So the most recent full year from financials from REG are from 2019. We are a publicly traded company. So in 2019, we sold 100 million gallons of fuel. A large majority of that was neat diesel and renewable diesel, around 500 million gallons of the total. As you can see, we produced 495 of that 700 million gallons ourselves. Making up the balance are two things. So first of all, we have more demand for biodiesel and renewable diesel than we make ourselves. So we do source some from third parties. And then we also, in addition to some of the petroleum majors being our customers for biodiesel and renewable diesel, they are also our supplier of heating oil and neat diesel fuel. We blend that product from them with both biodiesel and renewable diesel and make it available to them. We did $2.4 billion in revenue in 2019. The nearly 500 million gallons of fuel that we produced led to a 3.7 million metric ton of CO2 reduction in calendar year 2019. So I'm going to introduce Optimus here in a moment. REG and Optimus have a strategic collaboration around the country in a number of geographies to introduce and deploy the B100 technology solution that Colin's going to walk you through in terms of a diesel modification standpoint. Optimus does supply the equipment, the software, and the engineering to modify the fleet vehicles within your fleet specifically. And then REG takes the lead for providing tanks and dispensers for fleets, particularly for pilot projects as they're just getting started. And we're also able to supply direct to those tanks B100. So we really think we've got a turnkey solution in terms of delivering significant greenhouse gas emission reductions today, particularly in the medium and heavy duty trucking segments, which we're focused on. So just a quick reminder that biodiesel is a, excuse me, a high performing fuel. Cetane values of biodiesel are significantly higher than diesel fuel, as you can see here. One of the big benefits we've seen long-term in engine performance is the lubricity benefit associated with biodiesel. Even at a B2 blend, there are significant lubricity benefits. ULSD does not require lubricity additive. And obviously at the B100 volumes we're talking, it is a tremendous lubricant within the fuel, within the engine. And just as a reminder, to be eligible for both blenders tax credit federally and things like RINs that are generated that make up an important part of the value proposition of biodiesel, there are very stringent ASTMD 6751 specifications that must be met to be eligible for any of those federal credits. Above and beyond that, REG has our own product specifications that are even more stringent than those 6751 specs. Just want to address one of the myths we often hear associated with biodiesel used in high blends, and that's the fact that there's a significant fuel penalty associated with biodiesel. And I think some of this may actually stem from the ethanol industry. So in ethanol, which is a gasoline substitute, it's true there is around a 33% decrease in fuel efficiency. That's simply not the case in biodiesel. We have a lot of data to prove that and are happy to share that with folks as well. So one of the drivers we've really seen, and in particular over the last 18 to 24 months, is just an increased demand globally with a lot of emphasis on North America in the last 12 to 18 months in terms of fleets, once again, both in the public and private sector to meet sustainability requirements. So a lot of municipalities around the world and in the US led this effort. We'll hear in a bit later on from Ryan Frazier from Department of Public Works in Washington, DC. They've got very aggressive targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. Places like New York City and others have followed suit. Well, one of the things we've really been seeing in the last 12 to 18 months is fleets in the private sector following suit. If you're watching any of the NFL or college football playoff games like I was over the last 30 days, it seems, about every third commercial is Amazon talking about meeting their zero emission goals by 2030. Major corporations like Walmart and PepsiCo are also stepping up and publicly touting their sustainability goals. And I think one of the things that folks are starting to recognize that while electrification and hydrogen and things like renewable natural gas are certainly part of the solution, particularly in the medium and heavy duty diesel trucking category, there are not a lot of immediate solutions, and the solutions that are out there tend to be very expensive. What Colin and myself and the others are going to talk about today are immediate reductions to greenhouse gas emissions up to 85% with minimal investment either in your bulk fuel infrastructure or actually minimal modifications required to your diesel engine itself. And once again, from a fleet standpoint, it is an all of the above approach. But if you look at the amount of metric tons of CO2 emitted, a big chunk of that does come from the medium and heavy duty trucks. So if you're looking to get the most bang for your buck from a carbon reduction standpoint, in terms of the minimal vehicles that need to be introduced to new alternative fuels, medium and heavy duty trucking is a great opportunity. And finally, just a few metrics specifically looking at what we can do in terms of greenhouse gas emissions reduction. So this is comparing a gallon of biodiesel, replacing on the far left a gallon of number 2 LSD. So you will hear us, I think, throughout the presentation talk about an 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions for a gallon of bio versus a gallon of number 2. If you flip the numerator and the denominator, the other way of saying that is that a gallon of petroleum diesel emits 580% more than a gallon of bio. So compressed natural gas, once again, is a great solution in terms of particulate tailpipe emissions. At the end of the day, it is a fossil fuel and emits 430% more CO2 than a equivalent gallon of biodiesel. And finally, on the electrification front, about 67% of the grid still comes from coal and natural gas. So if natural gas is the source of electrification, that vehicle still emits about 190% of the GHGs versus a gallon of diesel fuels, of biodiesel, excuse me. So once again, one of the things we're really excited about, these B100 solutions, they are the right solution today and now, waiting for some of these technologies to develop, which and once again, in medium heavy duty trucking, we think could be 7, 10, 15 years down the road. And finally, just a high level overview of a cost comparison of some of the different technologies that are out there. So Colin will go into this in a bit more detail, but the cost to modify a diesel vehicle, depending on what it is, tends to be in that $12,000 to $15,000 range. In most cases, we can utilize existing bulk fuel diesel infrastructure, so no additional infrastructure requirements. I'm sure many of you have looked at things like CNG, LNG, electric, or maybe even hydrogen. Large CapEx investments required upfront on the vehicles themselves, as well as new infrastructure that needs to be put in place. So finally, one of the things we talked about at the beginning is the opportunity to provide a turnkey solution. Many of the fleets that we work with, when they're doing pilot projects, even if they've got a 100 truck fleet or a 1,000 truck fleet, which are the examples we'll talk about today, with Ames having a 100 vehicle fleet and DPW having a 1,000 truck fleet, they typically want to start with working with 5 to 10 vehicles as a pilot project. And what we've done in both those examples is brought in tanks. For DC, we started with a 2,500 gallon tank. We swapped that out for a 12,500 gallon tank last year as their volume increased. City of Ames, we introduced a 12,500 gallon tank. Once again, double wall, heated, insulated, B100 tank and dispenser that can operate as the interim dispenser solution to fleets as they're looking to get started with some of these alternative fuels. And just a quick reminder or overview of some of the fleets around the country that we're working with. We're going to hear from a couple of others today. REG owns a petroleum distributor in Des Moines, Iowa. That entire fleet has been converted to allow us to vet and work with the technology and prove to ourselves that B100 is a tremendous solution for greenhouse gas emissions. We're working with snow plows, refuse trucks, dump trucks, class 8s, basically anything in the class 5 to class 8 category will work around the country. And then I'm gonna wrap with this before handing it over to Colin. So we are actively looking for partners to continue to pilot with. some of the criterion that we're looking at is the class 5 to class 8s. Obviously, the more diesel fuel vehicles consume on an annual basis, the more we can address that fleet's overall greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. Organization that do have sustainability goals in place are very attractive, and we're willing to work with folks to, particularly on these pilot projects, make this be a minimal investment upfront in terms of the CapEx investment in the vehicles or the tanks and dispensers. So I'm going to wrap up with that for now and turn it over to Colin. So Colin, I'll hit stop share and you can go ahead and start sharing your slides.
Perfect. Appreciate it, John. Thank you. And give me 1 second here just to share screen. Okay. All right. So again, my name is Colin Heiler. I'm the CEO of Optimus Technologies. We are based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we design and manufacture the advanced fuel systems that enable the use of 100% biodiesel that the fleets later on and that John had previously spoken about. Our target is targeting applications that are difficult to achieve emission reductions in other mechanisms. So heavy duty vehicles, which consume a quarter of all the fuel that gets used in the United States, but account for the smallest number of single vehicle registrations. These vehicles tend to be difficult or near impossible to achieve emission reductions and petroleum offsets with other mechanisms like electrification or hydrogen or natural gas. In some applications, it is suitable and feasible to deploy those technologies, but at a significant capital and operational expense. So I won't touch too deep on the advantages and the attributes of biodiesel. I think John did a good job of that. I think maybe the one key point that I will touch on are the carbon reductions. And so the number that gets thrown around a lot is somewhere between 80–85% greenhouse gas or carbon emission reductions. Those emission reductions, those are analyzed on a life cycle basis. But if you take a little bit deeper look, biodiesel actually tends to be a carbon neutral solution. And the reason for that is the carbon emissions that are released into the atmosphere are considered biogenic. So the carbon that gets released in the atmosphere during the combustion of biodiesel is carbon that was in the atmosphere within a few years. So the plants have sequestered that carbon and it gets released into the atmosphere. So it provides a closed loop cycle, and there's no new net new carbon emissions like you'd have with petroleum fuels, where you're actually extracting the carbon from the ground and releasing it. So biodiesel is actually a pathway for near zero or zero carbon emissions. And as John had touched on previously, has a wide variety of additional benefits. Our technology is an advanced fuel system that can be bolted onto existing engines or integrated into the new build process for vehicles as they get manufactured. At a high level, there's a few simple components. I'll start in the upper left-hand corner and walk through these briefly. So one of the key benefits of the Optimus technology is that we are never inhibiting the engine from operating on traditional diesel. So from a risk mitigation and a fleet deployment standpoint, you always have the ability to operate on diesel as a safety backup. The engine itself will always start up and shut down on diesel, and we're using waste heat from the engine system to condition the biodiesel. The vector fuel tank, which is primarily storing biodiesel, is heated. The in-cab display provides the driver feedback on the operation of the vehicle, but primarily it's used as a fuel gauge for the additional biodiesel tank. From a driver standpoint, there's no engagement or interaction that's required on their behalf. The full system is completely automated. Bottom right-hand corner is a photo of the vector manifold. This is the fuel conditioning module. This encompasses a heat exchanger, a variety of sensors, a dedicated biodiesel pump, and then a biodiesel fuel filter. We add an auxiliary fuel filter that's dedicated to the biodiesel system, And that ensures that, again, that diesel backup always remains available to the engine operation. So the system, when it switches to biodiesel and when it switches back to diesel, those filters are not shared across fuel systems. And that ensures there's no cross-contamination of biodiesel in the diesel fuel system. The full system itself integrates through our electronic control unit. We've got proprietary software and algorithms that optimize the use of biodiesel in any diesel engine. And it ensures that the driver or the operator of the equipment has no engagement. So it's fully automated. They're gonna get in and operate the vehicle as they would traditional diesel vehicle with no further engagement required on their behalf. As I mentioned, we use waste heat from the engine to condition the biodiesel. So as the engine warms up, we use coolant from the engine's antifreeze system through the vector fuel filter module and through the heated biodiesel fuel tank. And that allows us to operate on B100 regardless of ambient temperature. And we'll hear a little bit later from Rich Iverson, City of Ames. They're operating snow plows in some of the harshest conditions on 100% biodiesel. And part of the function of the heating is to overcome any challenges traditionally associated with biodiesel in cold climates. Walk through a little bit more detail on the fuel system components. The biodiesel fuel tank, because we are still utilizing diesel fuel for startup and shutdown, and it's available as a backup fuel system in the event that it is necessary, we have in some cases, dual chambered tank. So we have diesel and biodiesel contained within the same tank, but two separate compartments. Or in other applications, we can actually add or reconfigure an existing tank on a dual fuel tank application. Upper right-hand corner is a vocational application that actually has two dedicated fuel tanks, one for biodiesel and the other for diesel. The conditioning module, again, serving primarily as an aggregator for the sensors, pump, and a variety of the system components. You'll see the difference between these two applications here is the fuel filter. So on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, those fuel filters are different. The vector system tends to utilize the OEM fuel filter. So on the right-hand side, that's actually a Fleet Guard filter for a Cummins application. And on the left-hand side, that's a Volvo filter for an over-the-road Class 8 Volvo tractor. So part of the system design utilizes the cross filter part number for the engine. So the only additional preventative maintenance item that is required with the addition of the vector system is a fuel filter change. So when you normally service your diesel spin-on filter, you have one additional filter that you would be servicing for the biodiesel system. And again, in most applications, that filter is actually the exact same part number you'd be using as the primary diesel filter. There's a valve manifold that mounts in the engine compartment. This allows the system to select back and forth between diesel and biodiesel. The default configuration is on diesel, so the system has to be active and energized in order for the biodiesel to be operating, and that's a fail-safe. So in the event that any of the components require maintenance or service, system will automatically default the engine over to traditional diesel. The engine will continue to be able to operate uninhibited on diesel until that service item has been addressed. On the left-hand side, the electronic controller, and on the right-hand side, there's some images of the in-cab display. Small gauge mounts in the dash, and again, provides primarily a function of fuel level for the biodiesel system, but also provides the user with feedback as to what system the engine's actually operating at that time. All of the data and all of the fuel system aggregates back into a fleet management portal. This data is available in real time for the fleet vehicles. Refueling station information and emission offsets can all roll up into this back-end web portal. We provide data both from the Optimus biodiesel fuel system as well as the engine operating system. So the engine controllers and other modules that are on the vehicle communication bus. One of the advantages of using biodiesel is there's a dramatic reduction in engine out soot emissions. So biodiesel, because of its high cetane rating and combustion properties, actually reduce soot emissions by somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 60%. This is incredibly relevant as it pertains to diesel particulate filters. The combustion of biodiesel generates, again, about half of the amount of soot that traditional diesel combustion would. So you have less soot loading on the diesel particulate filter, overall providing a net benefit to not only the filter operation, extended regen service intervals, as well as an efficiency benefit because the engine has to do less work to push exhaust through that filter system. Variety of users and applications ranging from, as John mentioned, Class 5 work trucks all the way up to Class 8 and even Class 8 plus vehicles that would be overweight permitted. I'll just go through a couple examples and then hand it off to Ryan from DC Department of Public Works. So City of Chicago Parks District is operating the technology in refuse vehicles. The Iowa Department of Transportation in snowplows. ADM operating in Class 8 over-the-road tankers. Star Oil Co. in Portland, Oregon, operating jobber trucks, and these are combination vehicles, so it's actually a jobber truck plus a trailer. These have overweight permits that allow for, I believe it's 105,000 pound gross vehicle weight ratings. REG, as John had mentioned, in Ames, Iowa. DC Water, the water authority in Washington, DC. DC Department of Public Works, who we'll hear from later, as well as the City of Ames, Iowa, operating in Iowa, plow trucks within their public works operation. So these are just some examples of the use cases and the technology deployment throughout the country. The real advantage and the key that fleets are able to take advantage of is the acceleration of carbon reductions. These vehicles are all severe duty workhorses that contribute the largest portion of emissions among the fleet profiles, but also are the most challenging to electrify or reduce carbon and eliminate petroleum fuel in other mechanisms. So the advantage of utilizing 100% biodiesel and the Vector system is a low capital expense to upgrade the equipment. Again, it can be retrofit to existing equipment or integrated into new vehicle specifications. So a small CapEx allows you to spec and utilize the same vehicles that you're already familiar with, that you already have fleet maintenance and training on, and allows you to seamlessly integrate liquid fuel in biodiesel that allows for carbon neutral pathways. As John mentioned, throughout the country, we're deploying the technology. We have pilot opportunities available for fleets that have strong sustainability goals and high volume of diesel fuel consumptions. Reach out to John or myself for further details. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ryan Frazier from DC Department of Public Works.
All right, thanks, Colin. Hey, everyone. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. Let me know if you can't. So I'm Ryan Frazier. I'm the Associate Fleet Administrator here at the Department of Public Works in DC. Got a few slides, give a quick overview of DPW, and then we'll get into our use of biofuels and Optimus. Here at DPW, we manage the entire district fleet, not emergency services, school buses, but we do fuel those vehicles as well. We got a fleet of around 2,600 on-road vehicles. About 800 are medium and heavy duty. Most of those are within DPW itself. We have some smaller agencies. We manage their vehicles as well. Like we said, we fuel another 3,000 vehicles. These include the fire department, police department, school buses, and we also fuel DC Water, which Colin said is starting a B100 pilot themselves. A little bit about our alternative fuel history. We started back in '99 with CNG. I think we were one of the first fleets in the country with a pretty significant CNG fleet. We still have about over 100 vehicles with 6 heavy duty. At this point, we have a significant number of flex fuel vehicles, over 600, which use about 200,000 gallons of E85 annually. And of course, like everybody, probably we're looking into electric vehicles. So starting that mainly in our light duty fleets. We have 10 Chevy Bolts, some Prius Primes now. And then one of the main reasons we looked to B100 and all these other alternative fuels as well is we have some pretty strict sustainability targets. You can see here 50% reductions by 2032 and 80% by 2050. These are part of DC's climate action plan. So it's something we're trying to get to with every vehicle purchase. So DC and biodiesel, we started using biodiesel back in 2010. It's been really successful, really great for us. The biodiesel blends have pretty much taken over all diesel in our fleet. They make up over 75% of all fuel dispensed. We still do use diesel at some stations for stationary generators, small equipment, stuff like that, fuel trucks, mobile fuel trucks. Annually, we dispense over 1 million gallons of biodiesel blends. We haven't seen any issues with the use of biodiesel at all for 10 years now. We make sure we clean our tanks. We filter the fuel annually, change filters, and then we convert to B5 during the really colder months here, use B20 in the summer and in the warmer months. It's just been a really great fuel for us, great way to reduce our emissions. So the B100 program, back in 2018, we started with our pilot program of the Optimus system. We installed it on 6 of our refuse trucks, which they're probably, like a lot of municipalities, are our biggest emitters in the fleet. They make up probably the largest chunk of our fleet, numbers wise as well, probably have about 100 of them. And like it says here, the heavy duty vehicles, they account for over 2/3 of our emissions. So we really needed to find something that could reduce emissions in these trucks, that would not give us any operational problems, that's been proven. So we started researching our options, and we found the Optimus system. And the more and more we looked into it, it just seemed foolproof. Doesn't have a large cost associated with it. Didn't have anything for the drivers to learn. Next few slides kind of reiterate what Colin said, but I'm going to go over them anyway. Like Colin said, the vehicle starts on diesel, and then as the fuel is circulated, the B100 is heated up, and then it will be cycled through the engine to run on its full duty cycle. It works as advertised. We haven't had any problems with that. So for our pilot project, we used a 2,500 gallon above ground storage tank and dispenser system. The tank is wrapped in a heated blanket. The dispenser is heated and insulated. came on a skid, really easy to hook up. And then it was also equipped with the Optimus fuel management system. So we have another fuel management system we use for our other tanks. The great thing about the Optimus system was it's only installed on these trucks that have the Optimus system. It won't let any fuel from our other vehicles go in, and vice versa. That was the one big concern we had before starting the pilot was, okay, what do we do when someone puts some B100 in a diesel tank and then it's 10 degrees overnight and everything freezes? It can't happen with this system. So that was another selling point for us. Here again is about the driver interface. So there isn't any driver interface to operate the system. When the B100 is ready to cycle through, the system does it automatically. No buttons for them to hit, nothing to go wrong, nothing for the drivers to learn. Basically, the only thing they have to know is when they turn the vehicle off, it's gonna pull the key out and it's gonna stay on for about 30 seconds or a minute until the B100 cycles or the diesel cycles back through, and then it'll shut off. So as long as they're aware of that, that's pretty much all the drivers need to know. This graph here is a chart of one of the days of a duty cycle. I think this was probably one of the coldest days a couple years ago. Took 14 minutes for the fuel to warm up, and then the truck ran for about 6.5 hours on B100, and then it had a 1-minute engine purge, and that was it. So you can see it's using a significant amount of B100, reducing emissions an unbelievable amount for these vehicles. So the program results, we had these 6 trucks operating, 17,000 gallons of petroleum displaced in just 6 trucks, offset 320,000 pounds of CO2. The 75% greenhouse gas emissions reductions is what we were really impressed with, being that we've got, that's our main goal here with our climate action plan. We saw no operational or maintenance impacts. Like Colin said, you have to change one filter. It's pretty simple. And then the 1-to-1 fuel economy, that was something we were kind of weary about, but we didn't see any change in fuel economy. So going forward, after our pilot program, our director announced that all refuse trucks moving forward are going to operate on B100. We got an order of 17 in April of last year. So in 2020, we ended up using over 30,000 gallons of B100. And then we would like to have a lot more at this point, but of course, COVID with everybody put some limits on manufacturing. So we've got 39 additional trucks on order, hopefully get here towards the end of 2021. And then another 51 6-wheel dumps that we use in the snow program as well, that will get here later in 2021. We did install a new 12,000 gallon tank, very similar to our the pilot program tank, just much larger. And then we're also looking at installing 2 of the similar tank applications at 2 of our other fuel sites, since we're getting about 90 trucks here in the next 9 months. We're going to need some extra capacity. That's pretty much it for me. Here's my contact information. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything. And I'm going to turn it over to Rich, I believe.
All right, we'll be in here with the I'm Rich Iverson with the City of Ames.
Hey, Rich.
And
We can't,
I've been,
Rich, we can't see your slides yet.
okay,
Scott, you wanna pull them up?
here we go.
I can pull them up, Rich, and share them, and I'll follow along with what you're saying if you're having an issue.
All right. How's that?
Yep, they're coming up. Yep, we got them. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. All right, so I'm Rich Iverson with the City of Ames. I've been with the City of Ames for just over 10 years. When I came on board to the city, we had a cool city project in place with an aggressive goal at that time by the city council. And this would have been 2010 of a 23% reduction in our overall city operations of our greenhouse gas emissions. And so part of that was fleet. And I want to thank Ryan for the excellent slides that he had, because he pretty much explained all of the technical operations that now I don't have to go through. So that's really good. Thank you, Ryan. And Ryan was also extremely helpful when we were going into our pilot project, providing me with some firsthand information about their experiences and really a confidence builder going forward, which we've experienced all of the same results and enthusiasm for this project that he did. So thank you, Ryan, for that. And then basically, the City of Ames recently did a citywide greenhouse gas inventory, and it's a pretty lengthy report. I'll cover some of that. And one of the things that I'm at an advantage of is that the city council, the city manager's office, and the citizens are extremely supportive of us going forward with reducing our greenhouse gases, our carbon intensity. And so it makes it a lot easier that way. And so I think other cities that may struggle with some of that can get back with me, with people from REG, Optimus, or with Ryan, and get some good support to initiate some more projects like this one. So the City of Ames has, this is one of the pages out of it, and I can just show you the city operations totaled in 2018. We had 72,000 metric tons. Transportation sector, which would include me and fleet. And we have Ride, which is our transit bus in the city. And then they have about 90 buses that transport a lot of the students. We have a university here. And then contracted, which is a small portion in the airport. Airport ridership and Ride both increasing the fuel consumption, which was a driver. So you can see the in the green section, in the change since 2014 was an increase of 18% in the fuel or in the fleet and Ride and other transportation. So fleet was actually the one that was able to reduce that a little bit. So going forward, we started talking with REG in early 2019 about initiating a pilot project using B100. So that was always a wish, I guess, for the city fleet department, was to be able to burn more biofuel. And we were on a B20 during the warmer months, but Ames is in the middle of the Midwest, and today it's 41 degrees, which is very unusual. 2 years ago, it was minus 36 about this time. And last year, it was about 9 below at this time. So we have a wide variety of temperatures, but typically it's down around the below freezing in this area during this time of the year. So we look at the reduction, and the city operations reduced by 4% per year, or 60 metric tons less in the fleet area. And then in 2020, we had 128 metric tons reduction due entirely to the B100 project. So we accomplished more using the B100 year-round in 5 trucks than we did in all of our efforts going with other alternative fuels during the past 6 years. So we used approximately 10,500 gallons of B100 in 2020, and we're just ordered another 7 trucks to add to that, which will over double the number of vehicles that we're using. So we're looking at around 250 metric tons reduction over the 2018 figures in going into 2021 this year. So we're excited about that. That's a good news story for us. I did want to mention just briefly a little bit about the advantages of this particular system is that we could take existing vehicles and add the equipment. It's not really what I would call where you retrofit. It's not really a retrofit. We're just simply adding the Optimus vector system to the truck, which manages the fuel. We add a fuel tank that's divided with a baffle in the middle, and we have regular diesel in part of it and B100 in the other part. And the temperatures can be well below zero, as we've proven, and we can do the work that we need to do. And another aspect of all of that is the simplicity of that is what is a big selling point for us. It's not where we're changing the truck or inhibiting our current operation at all. It's really a good move forward. So basically our fuel usage over the past few years, the yellow is biodiesel, which is a B20 mix. And so we've been using B20, but that's just during the warmer months. And then the blue is the regular diesel that's used in the colder months. So we've made some good strides forward, but nothing compared to what we're making now. This is really a really beautiful thing for our reduction of our carbon footprint. So the B100 project, how do we get started? Well, REG came to us and they presented us with the pilot project. We researched the available data. We talked to people like Ryan Frazier in Washington, D.C. and some people in Chicago, and we got references, and we talked with Optimus Technologies, and we became very, very confident in being able to take this forward. So we defined the project as a 3-year pilot project. We're going to use 5 trucks for 3 years, analyze what we've had, collect our data, and then keep updating our city council. So we put this all together. We went to our city council and we presented it to them, and they were totally on board. They supported us. They said, yeah, let's go ahead with this pilot project, and we'll get the results. So we're at 1 year right now. And as you know, we took this back to council in August with our results, and they said, yeah, let's go ahead and get 7 more trucks, doubling the size of our pilot project, which is fabulous for us. I think that we wanted to make sure we had a secure supply of the B100, which was provided by, as Ryan's, he has a 12,000 gallon tank now. We have a 12.5 tank that we leased at a very low price from REG. Thank you. And we have a very dependable supply right here in Iowa, which is really good for us to keep our tank full. So we kicked off the pilot project a year ago in January, and the first weekend We had -10 degrees. We ran our snowplow trucks, and they went out the door, and we were hoping that everything was going to go well, and it went extremely well. We had no issues whatsoever. The 5 trucks were plowing snow 24/7 for 2 days. They burned about 1,000 gallons of B100. That one weekend, we used enough fuel to reduce our metric tons of carbon by 12.6. And so we could really feel it. The very first weekend, we could feel all of this going on. So on the chart, the blue is the burn of the biodiesel, and the red is the regular diesel. So as the trucks warmed up or shut down, then that's why they would have the red portion, the rest of it. So it's about 90% B100 in sub-zero conditions. Plowing snow, that's pretty rewarding. So the project impact, we have Ames community is approximately 67,000 citizens with, in 2018, we had 33,000 students included in that. The city government and city council are very aggressive with our sustainability project. I encourage you to go to the City of Ames website and check out the inventory that our city did, citywide inventory on our carbon and greenhouse gas emissions. State government, so we're currently attempting to get the DOT to be able to fill up some of their trucks here in at our facility. They have their state campus for our Iowa Department of Transportation is in Ames. They don't have a lot of trucks located here, but what they do, they've converted to the Optimus vector system to be able to burn the B100 year round. So we're gonna get them filling up over here. And then local industry, so REG is located or headquartered right here in Ames. They have refineries in our area, and of course, Iowa agriculture, all of the B100 that we've burned to date is soybean-based fuel. So we're supporting our local agriculture and our local farmers. And of course, we're doing what we can to help our future generations. About the choices that we make, why do we like this method of reducing our carbon footprint over, say, purchasing electric or switching to compressed natural gas? We haven't ruled out any of those things, but what we do like about this is, of course, what you see on this slide, but also the fact that we can make an investment and get a much bigger impact. If we bought electric vehicles and the batteries were produced in a factory that's a coal electric powered facility, you're not going to get much back off those electric batteries in terms of the reduced emissions. And also, so you have to be wary of what you're buying, and you've got the full life cycle of those batteries and what happens to those. And then the other thing is we have a dependability. So we know that our trucks are not incapacitated in any way, shape, or form by this technology. So we can use regular diesel if we had to, but basically we haven't had to. So it's been, that part was a nice security blanket for us to get started. We have not had one issue with the equipment or with the fuel whatsoever. It's performed well. The operators have given us a green light from their perspective. They appreciate it. They haven't noticed anything difference in power, and they like the fact they can walk out the back door and fill up their truck, which is something kind of nice for them. So benefits to the city, of course, we're looking for a big reduction in the fleet section of this. We're going to continue to move forward with adding more vehicles to the B100 year-round list, and we're supporting our local economy, which is also something that the city is backing 100%. Is the community appreciates what we're doing, and then we're building pride in our community. by being one of the first ones in this area to get excited about this and move forward with it. So we want to promote what we're doing. So we've done a little graphics and painted some of our plows, and the citizens see this out on our streets plowing their snow at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning while they're going around getting to work. And they know their streets are cleared and free of snow because we have dependable equipment and trucks like this out there helping them out, getting them to work. This is a picture of the tank. Behind the tank over here is 4 of the 7 trucks that were leaving that morning about 2 weeks ago to be upfit as snowplow trucks. And here's another picture of them. And then if you do get a chance to go into the City of Ames website, cityofames.org, and look at the sustainability under the living tab, these are some of the people that were involved in the development of the evaluation and inventory, gas inventory. There's goals set in there and for our future, and so I think we're looking really well that way. And then if there's any questions or anything, and I'm going to turn it over to I believe Jill. She's going to talk about what you can do to get started in this. Stop sharing.
Hey, Joe, you're still muted.
Thank you. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we're seeing a good-looking redhead there. Okay.
Okay, and you can hear me. Great.
Yep, we got you.
Fabulous. Sorry about that. So as John said, I'm Jill Hamilton, and I'm president of Sustainable Energy Strategies, and I'm here on behalf of the National Biodiesel Foundation, and I have the fun pleasure of being able to share with you how you might find assistance in funding some of these wonderful projects that we've heard about today. And I'm going to focus primarily on federal, although John mentioned there is quite a bit of state funding. And you should always be try to match your federal funding with state opportunities as well. This first slide that I want to talk about is the Diesel Emission Reduction Act funding opportunity. And before I get too far along, I wanted to mention that the National Biodiesel Foundation, in partnership with both Optimus and REG and several fleets, such as the one Rich mentioned was Iowa DOT, as well as Ryan Frazier's DC DPW and DC Water, have been successful in securing DERA funding for some of the vehicles they're talking about. Not all of the vehicles will qualify. There are some restrictions I'm going to go over today, but know that there's about $100 million available in funding each year, and this was just reauthorized in this past December. So there's going to be funding continuing throughout the next 5 years. Last year, even though they're authorized up to 100 million, they're usually appropriated a little less. They received about 87 million last year. They distributed 44 million nationally and 26 through state grants. Often the state grants also appeared with some of the Volkswagen money. Please know that this Optimus technology that you've heard about today is eligible under most of those state programs, but it is eligible under the DERA National Program.
Hey, Jill.
Yes.
You might want to put your screen on full screen. We're getting a preview look right now.
Oh, you are? That's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's see if I can just move it over. I'm not sure how to stop that. I'll try it again. Let's try this. Is that better?
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
You're not seeing all my notes now? Oh, well, you get the idea. So a couple things about the DERA program is you do need to know that you have to decommission the vehicles, and you can include some of your project management and training in that as well. But you do need to show that you're in a non-attainment area. Not every area is considered a non-attainment area. So if you have questions about that, certainly give me a call. But because the foundation's been successful in securing these funds, oops, I'll make sure I'm going the right way. I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about some of the nuances of the DERA funding. Okay. So one of the criteria as it stands right now, to use the Optimus system, you must purchase a new vehicle under the National DERA program. As Rich said, you don't have to if you're pursuing other funding opportunities or to use the Optimus system, but under EPA for the DERA funds, you do at this point in time. We're looking into trying to possibly change that, but as it stands right now. And so that means that when you purchase it, you have to have the Optimus system as part of the new invoice for the new vehicle. Some of the changes for 2020, the vehicles will be, if they are going to be replaced in the next 3 years, you're probably not going to be able to use those vehicles. You have to look at a vehicle that's going to be in your fleet or have a useful life. In Rich's case, for example, he replaces vehicles every 10 years. That doesn't necessarily mean the vehicle doesn't have a useful life. It has a useful life. Most vehicles have a useful life, especially these heavy duty between class 5 and class 8 have a useful life between 20 and 28 years, for example. So keep that in mind. And I know Colin has talked about applying this to class 5 and class 8 trucks, but you can also do it to locomotives, marines, and non-road engines as well, school buses, etc., transits. And this is just a little bit of an overview of the breakdown and the difference between the matching funds. If you look 3/4 of the way down under, I don't know if you see my cursor, but this is the vehicle or a vehicle equipment replacement is the category that we've been successful under, which means that the DERA grant will pay for 25% of your project costs, and you must come up with the other 75%. One unique thing that EPA does allow is to use an alternative emissions calculator. And because the DERA calculator, the EPA calculator, does not include B100, we went to the National Biodiesel Board, their website, and used their emissions calculator to punch in the emissions gallons. So just some nuances to know about. Moving on to CMAQ. I know a lot of most of these fleets on the call usually work with their Clean Cities coordinators. If not, I encourage you to do so. They've been successful in securing CMAQ or Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program. If you don't, if you're not eligible under the DERA program, this might be a good fit for you, but you still it's still under the purview of emissions reductions. So you're probably going to have to be in a non-attainment area, and you will have to work with the transportation planning groups on tips. But biodiesel B100 does qualify under this program. And like I said, if you're like for Rich, for example, since he didn't, maybe his vehicles are too new, they don't meet the DERA program, this might be a good option for you. But you have to reach out through your metropolitan planning organization to pursue this. And you usually need to find a champion. But there is a lot of competition for this. There is 2.4 billion available, almost 2.5, but this sounds like a lot, but there is a lot of, because this has been around for a while, there are a lot of folks looking at these funds and pursuing these funds for a variety of categories. This is a fun little funding opportunity. John Sherrington and Colin and I have explored the DOT ferry program, have met with them, and have started to think about some projects. We would welcome you reaching out to us if you have an innovative project that you'd like to explore. There's only $30 million available, but although it's competitive, we believe that the B100 application will be highly competitive in this format, meaning that it meets a lot of their criteria of innovative and unique aspects, as well as the carbon reductions. Fta Transit. Colin, I'm not sure if you've done a transit application, but I know we have had some discussions with some transits, and there is quite a bit of money out there for both the vehicle upgrades that are needed, as well as the infrastructure funding that's required, that kind of Rich and Ryan outlined, that if you need to make upgrades, that there are funds available under the Federal Transit. And I'm outlining about 423 million here. And I'm going to close with the USDA Higher Blend Infrastructure Incentive Program. If you're in the biodiesel industry, you've probably heard about this, but if you're not, you may not be aware of this. I know, I think Brian mentioned this earlier, that he's applying for some infrastructure funding under this program. It's closing next week. And I did want to mention that although it's closing this week, I'm going to review some of the slides, because I believe strongly that this is going to be something similar to this, if not this, is going to be available within the next coming year. There's no indication specifically of that, but because of the success of this program, I think we're going to see more of it. So almost done here. There are two types of projects. One is for transportation fueling facilities, and one is for fuel distribution facilities. The transportation fueling is for the fleets. I'm not going to really go over the distribution differences. In order to calculate some of your benefits, you have to know what your sales volumes are, your incremental growth. And for the sake of time, I'm going to skip through some of this. For fueling distribution facilities, you know, well, since you guys are fleets, I'm going to skip this, but know that it's in the notes section if you're interested in it. There's, like I said, the application deadline is next week. If you're interested in more information, I've provided a link to that site in here. And there's my contact information, as well as Anthony Cook's of USDA. So that's it for me, John. I'm going to go ahead and escape out of here.
No, thanks, Jill, to yourself and the rest of the panelists. So I've been following along with the chat function as we've been going through. So let me take it from the top. So our first question, and this is for Rich and Ryan, is what's the most important thing fleet managers need to hear to be comfortable switching to biodiesel? So Ryan, you want to take a crack at that one first?
Most comfortable thing, fleet. Yeah, so I guess we're talking about just biodiesel or B100.
I'd say B20 and B100. What do you need to be comfortable with to make the switch?
So just need to make sure that your tanks are cleaned out. You know, get a company to do some fuel filtering or tank cleaning. You're gonna have to change your filters for the first couple months. That's just for regular blended biodiesel. But other than that, you know, there's really no change. For the B100, for the Optimus system, there's really not much you have to do. There's no driver interface really. Like I said, the maintenance is only the one extra fuel filter. Yeah, I mean the system takes care of itself. There's you know, if you do a pilot program, you get one of these smaller tanks. I can't think of anything that was that we had to change our business around. I don't know if Rich has got a.
Thanks, Ryan. Rich, you got any comments here?
Yeah, I think that the thing that we were most concerned about with kicking this thing off was to make sure that we're having no dependability issues. We're a smaller city, but we're dedicating half of our snowplow fleet to this. And so if like we did, we had a blizzard the first weekend. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be calling City Hall and saying, hey, we can't get the streets plowed because we just switched this over, which I felt confident going into it because of the feedback that I've gotten from people that had been on the system. And I think that going into it and having the first weekend 10 below zero and a full blizzard, I think the city was on board. The citizens never missed a lick, so it was business as usual. I agree. I think there's some just some very small maintenance filters and so forth, like Ryan said. Other than that, you know, we were good to go as soon as the systems were installed.
Thanks, Rich and Ryan. Just a reminder, somebody asked me if the slides will be made available. We will send those out to all of the registrants. Just got a follow-up question on that. In regards to OEM approval, anonymous question we got is this individual's fleet is mostly Cummins engines, but they were told that Cummins won't allow above a B20. Would the utilization of the Optimus system mess up my warranty? Colin, you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, so engine manufacturers warranty part and workmanship. So at baseline, their warranties aren't impacted by fuel anyways. It's a little nuanced because they'll generally tend to say their recommendation is 20 or recommendation is 5 or something like that. But that fuel recommendation is actually independent of warranty. And with the addition of the Optimus vector system, there's no impact on the engine warranty. Manufacturers will still cover and honor their warranty in the event of a fuel system failure that was unrelated. And then with the Optimus product, we also have an additional umbrella warranty that covers not only the Optimus product, but in the event of any failure that was caused by the Optimus product, that would actually extend over and cover components that would be impacted by that. I can say that we've never had to use that. I can defer to John in the I don't know how many billions of gallons you guys have sold at this point of biodiesel, 4 billion gallons of biodiesel at this point, that they've never had impact on engine warranties. And so, one of the things that we always recommend and are doing this in a lot of cases, but certainly with both Rich and Ryan here, but working with the local dealerships and the teams that you're purchasing the vehicles from, it's helpful to get them comfortable and familiar with the technology. Both Rich's dealership and Ryan's dealership, or one of the dealerships that Ryan uses, are certified installers and service centers for the Optimus product. And I think that's also critical as we think about a broader sense of rolling out and expanding, making sure that there's sales and support staff available in your existing relationships. And we find most dealerships are enthusiastic and very interested in working to understand the technology, to become certified service centers, and that's something we're more than happy to work through.
Thanks, Colin. This one I think is primarily directed at Ryan and Rich. Has there been any noticeable reduction to after treatment service? I'm trying to collect some data on that. So we did a couple of side experiments. We had a non-equipped truck. It was Peterbilt that was using B100 through the summer months. It has one operator that is the primary operator, and his feeling was that it was regenerating a lot less than it was before, which doesn't surprise me. And so I'd say after 1 year, we don't have a great comparison because we didn't collect the data before. So we're working on that. But I think it seems like there certainly hasn't been any increase
in regen, and we haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. So it kind of points to that they're not going into regen quite as frequently.
Ryan, you guys have any data on that?
We don't have any data. I mean, ours, it's probably the exact same experience that Rich has had. It's something we would like to have more data about. It's just we haven't got to that point yet. And, you know, our trucks, it's not the same driver driving every time on the same route. We don't have highways here in DC. Regen's a major problem here, and it has not been a problem with any of these trucks. So without the data, I mean, the indications are that it's regenerating a lot less and working a lot better.
Look at another anonymous question. It's directed at Rich, but I think Ryan can address it as well. So it asks, are the B100 trucks kept inside in a heated building when they're not in use?
Yes and no. So when we're expecting snow, most of the trucks are inside, and they're loaded and ready to go. That way they don't have to clean snow off the windows and so forth. But the trucks have been out, and they're, I guess we haven't changed our operation at all because we're using the B100 year round. It's virtually the same as it was before. Some trucks have been outside in below zero temperatures, and they operated just fine. But typically I have to say, yeah, we kind of plan ahead there.
Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, ours are all kept outside year round. No
Okay.
change.
And then I can share that the RAG fleet at our petroleum distributor in Des Moines, that fleet of trucks is kept outside year round as well.
Yeah, and I'll just
Go ahead, Colin.
just make a clarification on his comments there, which I think he touched on. But you know, the diesel equipment was kept indoors prior to large snow events and stuff like that anyway. So it's not a unique attribute of the B100 trucks being parked inside.
Yeah. So next question is a good one. So how do drivers typically fill up the dual tanks or the chambers? Do they tend to fill up with B100 and B5, B20 at the same time, or as they get low on each respective fuel? They're very interested in piloting this technology, but have encountered concerns about the time required for snowplow drivers to fill up 2 tanks instead of 1. So I think, Rich and Ryan, that's relevant to both of you.
Yeah, so they fill up the B100 tank. I think most of our trucks, it's about a 60-gallon B100 tank, 40-gallon diesel tank, and they'll fill up the B100 tank every other day. The diesel tank, they don't have to fill it up, but every 2 weeks, if that. So that was kind of our concern. We have the B100 tanks at a different facility than all of our other diesel tanks, but it ends up actually working out. We put the B100 tank at our collections facility where the trucks are housed, so they don't even have to go to a fuel site anymore. They love it. They just go back there, fill up every day, and they only have to go to the fuel site, you know, 1 or 2 times a month. So it ends up actually working out better.
And that's actually the exact same experience that we've had. So we have our B100 tank right here at our facility. They'll usually go through. So we have a 70-gallon tank. 42 is B100, and then the rest is regular, either B20 or B5. The B5 is about 2.5 miles away from this facility, and our trucks are here. The drivers have really appreciated coming back for lunch, pull their truck over to the B100 tank, top it off, and go. And then they don't go over to the other facility to fuel the B5 or B20, but like you said, every couple of weeks, if that. So it's been good as long as the drivers are happy. That makes me happy.
Thanks, guys. So here's a good question. Is fuel storage tank cleaning needed annually or done as a precaution? And And I would just say to start with, and I'll let Rich and Ryan take it, I think it's a good annual practice to clean your fuel tank. We encourage everybody to do that, whether they're using biodiesel or not. But Ryan and Rich, do you want to address that in regards to the B100 and your other fuel usage?
Yeah, we do it annually. I mean, everybody recommends it. Maybe there may have been a year or so missed when we first started, and you could tell a big difference. You know, these guys that clean the tanks, they'll show you how much water or sludge will come out. So if you miss a year, there's definitely a difference. So we're going to keep doing it annually.
Yeah, that's the same for us. We have a program for all of our fuel tanks in the city and different facilities that they get cleaned once a year for sure.
And Rich and Ryan, that's for all your tanks, not just your B100 tank or B20 tanks, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. There's a question on, do any of the grant opportunities, Jill, that you went over, do they cover renewable diesel?
That's a good question. I would have to think about that. Not off the top of my head, but there could be an innovative application where we might be able to look at that, whether it's CMAQ or maybe the ferry project, for example. We could probably, if there's an infrastructure need that you had to isolate it for some reason, but usually renewable diesel is treated the same as diesel fuel, and so there's no real infrastructure needs. But we could explore that if somebody's needing to isolate it for some reason.
Okay, thanks everybody. So guys, that's all the questions I'm seeing for now. I'll give it another 30 seconds here as we're thanking everybody, wrapping up to see if any other questions come in. So once again, we had a great crowd, nearly 100 people ended up being on the call today. Thanks for everybody for taking the time. Thanks to all of the panelists, in particular our guests, Rich and Ryan, talking practically about some of their experience converting their fleet to B100. Jill is a great source of information around the grant availability, and we have worked with her directly to submit and win grants, a number of which she described earlier today. If anybody on the call, and there's already one or two folks that have reached out to me, are interested in a discussion with Colin or myself about doing a pilot project, reach out to us. I will have Scott and our marketing team forward the slides and the contact details of all of the participants that participated. One final question I got, and then we'll wrap up. So what are the safeguards for misfueling? And Colin, maybe you want to take a first crack at that.
Yeah, so I actually had some spare slides that I didn't get into, but that covers it. So this is the 12,500 gallon tank at DPW. This tank has dual dispensers. So there's a dispenser on both ends so that two trucks can refuel at the same time. And then this is the Optimus Smart Fuel technology that's actually embedded within the dispenser. And this can be upgraded onto existing dispensers, or on the projects we've been deploying, it's integrated in the new station, the skid-mounted station, integrated into that build. Sorry. So the cabinet itself is a heated insulated cabinet for the B100, which doesn't prevent misfueling, but the misfueling is addressed by this L-shaped RFID reader that actually bolts onto the nozzle. So it can clamp onto any existing nozzle, and then there's a corresponding RFID tag with a chip, and then that ties back to an electronic controller that's mounted in the dispenser. And so similar to fleet management, either card swipe or other RFID technologies, ours has a unique chip on it that is not authorized by other dispensers, and the reader itself is not authorized by other ring tags or chips. So if a vehicle that was not equipped with the Optimus system tried to refuel, that reader would not send an authorization signal, that pump would not turn on, and fuel could not be dispensed. The same is the case on trucks, like the DCPW trucks. If I go back here, whoops, sorry, I actually all the way up here. The DCPW trucks, bottom right-hand corner, and the City of Ames truck on the left-hand side here. These actually have dual filler necks on the same tank, but that RFID chip has to be within a 2-inch proximity. So a driver couldn't put the B100 dispenser in the diesel tank and actually have it authorized. And if they were in the biodiesel tank and they took the nozzle out, there's a delay on there somewhere between 2 and 5 seconds, but it actually won't allow you to put that nozzle into a tank that's not dedicated and assigned for B100. So there's, you know, and no issues whatsoever if you put B20 or B5 in the biodiesel tank. Biodiesel tank's compatible with any fuel, any compression ignition fuel. So you know, basically B0 all the way up to a B100. No issues if you're putting, you know, if that happens, but from a dispenser standpoint, no ability to misfuel B100 into a piece of equipment.
Perfect. Thanks, Colin. I'm not seeing any further questions. Thanks for the Q&A from everybody. That was fantastic. Thanks again to all of the panelists. We'll get you the slides as we discussed. Hold on, I just got one new message. Oh, okay. Just somebody thanking you, which is fantastic. Thanks everybody for their time, and reach out if you want us to get in further contact with you. Thanks everybody.